And we have seen that happening in Europe. But here in Kenya, we have become like a dumping ground. If you ask me, I went to Ghana a few days ago, and you will find, if there is a place they have ensured, safeguarded, is their issue of medication, of drugs. But here, we have allowed everybody, anyone can do a business of a chemist. And so you even wonder, we don't have a few regulations. And who monitors? Now that health was devolved, who remained up there to ensure quality assurance in everything that we do within the set of health? So there is need of very serious policy, Madam Speaker. Even as we bring in the authority, there must be a way of regulating. There must be a way of now each pharmaceutical to also do public participation, as the Constitution says, that we shall have public participation for Kenyans to understand. So, Madam Speaker, we are agreeing with the bill, but we are saying we have so many loopholes so far that many Kenyans are suffering, and also the pricing. As we bring in also, can we look at the pricing, Madam Speaker, because you find you will go and see a doctor, and from a doctor you are given a list of drugs that will cost you beyond 50,000, and this is just a drug of a month. And so every Kenyan in every family, 80% are always on Accra Road, that is where we have the best and the affordable chemist and accessible. So everyone just runs. You find a huge line. If you go right now, Madam Speaker, you'll be shocked how we have a whole, everyone has come from all over. What they are looking for, it is affordable drugs that you can only find at this chemist, which I won't say the name, that is around Accra Road. And it's becoming, it's like a business that is booming. The other thing we need to request, and I'm hoping Chair will look at it, is that as we bring in the authority, we also need to ask ourselves, is there a way we can bring wellness and prevention? That we can prevent taking drugs, but use something else. Is there a way? So that the authority, will not just be talking about drugs, but ensuring that citizens are healthy, and that it is not a must every time I should be taking drugs. I can use, Madam Speaker, vegetables, fruits, as an alternative of my drugs. So even as we look at this, I want us to look at the pricing, who controls, because every day you find each chemist with its own figures. You will be surprised, Madam Speaker, if you go to big malls in Gigiri, it is even cheaper buying there a drug than buying even in our local chemists that are nearby. So, and that tells you how sad it is, and how it is sad to Kenyans. You enter into any hospital, people have now realized that you will be treated, but they have a pharmacy somewhere where they are doing business. So all the profits is now in drugs. But then now, are these drugs better for Kenyans, or we are just worsening the situation of this patient? So for me, especially the antibiotics, these are very critical things that we need to look at. Today, if you take Argumenti for a week, in 2-3 weeks, again, you find yourself with the same attack that you had. And so does it mean this drug nowadays is becoming another menace? So for me, there are two things we have to look at. Even as we look at this, there is need for the Committee of Health to walk around and look at that H. pylori kit, which now they have changed. They have brought in a new one. They are saying now this is better than the other one. But did you sensitize? And how does this one become not better than this other one? And how does a Kenyan who is down in the rural understand that this is the better kit than the other one? So those two drugs that I'm talking about, I have used. I've used H. pylori, the new kit. And in 3 months, I went back to the same challenges that I was facing. So I'm asking myself, and this is a kit, Madam Speaker, you buy at 15,000. So for me, even as we do that, Chair, there is need to be very serious in terms of regulations on how we put in chemists, but more importantly, how we deal with drugs today in our country, and all the pharmaceutical companies that we have must tell us where do they do their public participation. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Eric Mushangi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity. And from the onset, I want to say that I support this bill, the Kenya Drugs Authority bill, and I wish to commend the chair and the committee, the Honorable Bukose and his committee, for a job well done. Honorable Speaker, the issue of drugs and medicine is a very serious issue in this country. And I want to say that we have lost very many people through the hands of quack doctors and people who prescribe drugs to ailing citizens. And instead of them giving them drugs, they end up giving them poison. And this is because this sector of drugs is not properly regulated. I believe that by this bill, this sector will be having good regulations, so that, Honorable Speaker, it is not everybody who wakes up one morning and decides to put up a pharmacy. We have seen and heard that in this country, the best business to put up is a pharmacy. And Honorable Speaker, I had a friend who used to brag how he makes so much money out of the sale of medicine. One day you could hear him say of how he bought medicine at a very low price, but selling it at a very high price because of the fact that many citizens cannot authenticate the price of the medicine. And I hope this bill now will take care of all this, so that we do not have people consuming drugs out of the people who want to make profit, but not to cure or to even enable our citizens to heal of their diseases. Honorable Speaker, this bill, as proposed, will ensure that this country does not continue receiving or rather importing medicine from China and other countries. It is going to give our country capacity to manufacture drugs and medicine to export, and that will also come with the creation of jobs in this country. So I wish to support and say that the committee has done a good job, and let us also put into consideration the idea of preventive measures. If we can prevent, if there is a way we can prevent the many diseases that we seek to cure through medicine, then that would be a very good thing, so that we do not have to always swallow medicine to get cured. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I support.
The Honorable Member for Seme, Honorable Dr. James Nikal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Madam Speaker, I rise to support the bill. Madam Speaker, this is actually a historical bill. In the last 1 or 2 weeks, we've actually made fairly historical legislations in regard to the health sector, and this is one of them. The objective of this is really the regulation of medicines and medical devices, which includes things like x-rays, which emit radiation, simple things just like blood-giving sets, therapeutic chemical substances, herbal medicines, and all scheduled substances. Madam Speaker, it's also important that this is closely linked also to the products that are used in veterinary medicine and also in agriculture. When you talk of chemicals like pesticides and herbicides, and I know you are interested in that, those actually, in a way, should should link to this, because these are chemicals. It's just how we use them that are different. And even if you use of cosmetics, particularly therapeutic cosmetics, all these things come together. And therefore, Madam Speaker, this raises very important issues considering where we have been in terms of regulations of medicines. The Pharmacy and Poisons Board, as constituted now, is actually regulating medicines and also regulating the personnel, the professionals. And so with this, we are breaking from that, and we are going to have a regulations of medicines separately from the regulations of professionals, which is really a major shift from what we have been doing before. Madam Speaker, also in the past, we have had issues where we have been regulating veterinary medicines and human medicines together, and this has been controversial. There's been a feeling that they should be separated. But if you look carefully, Madam Speaker, the chemicals, the molecules are the same. If you're using a drug, an antibiotic, it's the same molecule you use in animals that you actually use in human beings. So as to whether we should split them, that's another issue that will actually be addressed here. The other important issue that is coming that we are making a new look at is the issue of control laboratory. Before, what we have been doing up to now is that the National Quality Control Lab was part and parcel of the Pharmacy and Poisons Board, and yet it had a board of its own. I used to call it a kangaroo board, because you have a board and another board within the board, and it has actually raised a lot of problems. So these are issues that we have to actually look up. These are groundbreaking, making very important changes. And so this bill, actually support it, Madam Speaker, it actually creates an authority which will look at the issues of licensing, all these things we are talking about, regulations of the same, advertising the same, and even more important, manufacturing, if they can be produced here locally. Because the regulation of manufacturing is a much more complex thing, because you are producing the products de novo, and therefore you have to be a lot more careful. So, Madam Speaker, this bill also, it creates schedules, particularly Schedule 4. And what is important about Schedule 4, Madam Speaker, is that it's actually a good way of bringing all these things together by creating scientific committees that deal with all this. And one of the committees we are going to create is National Food Safety. If you look at the amount of chemicals that are also used in food, I mean, that's something we should also look at. And then you look at a committee on human medicines, you look at a committee on veterinary medicine, and you look at medical devices. Medical devices itself is a huge area. As I said, you start from simple things like blood-giving sets, you go to X-rays, you go to MRI, you get to very complex machines. All these have to be regulated. And then we now have to look at how do we manage the quality control lab itself. That is the lab that actually guides when you are going to do registration and licensing of drugs. So these really are very important issues that this bill is addressing. The other issue, Madam Speaker, is the issue of trade. We have to regulate trade. As far as these are health, medical issues that they deal with human life, that there is also trade element into it with business and business interest, and therefore these have to be regulated. Retailing, as people are saying, you have pharmacies all over the place, charging different things, behaving very differently. That has now have to be looked at. Then you have the issue of wholesale, where the wholesalers themselves, Madam Speaker, actually are a major part of the regulation system. And therefore, we should look at that carefully. That is taken care of. Madam Speaker, there is also how we schedule these drugs. So you schedule them on knowing which drugs can be used where, by who. These are really complex issues that we have to look at. And even more importantly is international trade. When you get into international trade, particularly the production of medicine, you must abide by good manufacturing practice. And this good manufacturing practice is actually there are WHO guidelines which give the levels. And if you have to manufacture for a bigger area, not just Kenya or East Africa, you have to go to what they call ML level 3. And we require, and that must come out in this. So all this we have. And one thing that has come out that we have to look at as a country is how we relate. We have professionals at various levels. In this country, in pharmacy, we have pharmaceutical technologies that is a diploma level. You have pharmacies at a degree level. We really must be very clear and set out proper guidelines on who does what. And those must be reflected in the bill itself. And this is not only in pharmacy. You find this clinical officers and medical practitioners. You find this in medical laboratory technologies, and you find pathologists. You find this in oral health officers and dentists. So again, this bill is probably going to be the first where we are going to have to put those things very clearly and put responsibilities where it should belong. But on that particular point, my view is as a country, we should actually start finding a way where people with the diploma can actually work their way up and get to the professional degree level. I think if we do that, then these issues we have of cadre issues, which actually come out a lot more seriously when we come into practice and trade. And unless we do something about it, I think it is going to give us a problem. So this bill addresses all this. There are issues that will be looked at the time of the Committee of the Whole House, when we will actually make amendments that will bring those levels we are talking about very carefully. We'll bring these committees to exactly delineate what they are supposed to do. With that, Madam Speaker, I support the bill.
Gladys Boss, member for Uasin Gishu County.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this very important bill. Honorable Speaker, I want to start by commending the chairperson and the members of the Committee on Health, Honorable Dr. Pukose and his members, because this is an extremely timely bill that has actually been long outstanding from the previous, from the 12th Parliament. So we are grateful to Honorable Pukose for ensuring that it did come to life in this particular Parliament, because it's extremely strategic and critical for this country. One, Kenya cannot attain the level 4 status that is required, as I'm informed by professionals like Dr. Pukose and Dr. Nyikal, that if we don't ensure that our law or the Kenya Drugs Authority bill is in conformity with the World Health Organization standards, then Kenya will be locked out from the international market of selling its manufactured pharmaceutical drugs to other countries. Right now, Kenya cannot export to Europe, and Kenya cannot export to the Americas because we do not meet the WHO standards. This bill will ensure that we meet the WHO standards. Yes, in this Parliament, during the finance bill, has given several incentives to encourage pharmaceuticals companies to manufacture locally. They cannot manufacture locally if our law is not, they can manufacture locally, but will not be able to export because of not meeting the international standards. Organizations such as the United Nations, the UNICEF, is domiciled here in Kenya. But whenever they require to buy any drugs, they will not buy the ones manufactured in Kenya because, again, our law is not in conformity with the international standards. So there are only 3 items that we seek and will be discussing going forward that are accommodated in this bill. One is to ensure that as per the international standards, only those who are trained pharmacists can be able to handle certain drugs, so that certain drugs can be handled by pharmacists only, and others can be handled by general handlers, such as our pharmacy technicians. This is not to say they'll be locked out of work, because if we improve our manufacturing and are able to export overseas, the biggest persons or personnel who will be guaranteed of jobs and be involved in the manufacturing are our pharmaceutical technicians. 2, we also want to ensure that as per the recommended best practices, the practices under the WHO standards, to ensure that licenses are only given, as is done globally, to pharmacists. Because if we don't do that as Kenyans and allow anybody to be given the trading license, then we shall fall below the WHO standards, thereby locking our country and hampering our growth. Again, here I want to make it clear that no pharmacy technicians will lose jobs or be locked out of the market. One is that they will be the ones working in these manufacturing industries, and they will be the ones that will be employed. But it is important that wholesaler dealer's license is a technical practice license and should only be issued to pharmacies, and that can be included in the bill. And lastly, that we reinstate the removal of the veterinary products from this particular bill and be able to include it back, because, as I've been informed and studied, is that the molecular science relating to animal health and human health is similar. So it would be a waste of taxpayers' funds to do double regulation and double vetting of human medicine versus veterinary medicine. In other countries, they are domiciled in one authority, which is suggested in this particular bill. So for more efficiency and to ensure that there are no loopholes of certain so that drugs that can have a negative effect can leave the system. And with that, I proceed to support this particular bill, but with those suggested amendments. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable members, as the Deputy Speaker had indicated, we have challenges with the system. So I am going to rely on the names that I indicated before we lost in the screen. So I'll give the first opportunity to the Honorable Samuel Atandi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to give my contributions on this bill, very important bill. And I begin by congratulating the chairman and the committee that have done a very wonderful job in coming up with this bill. Madam Speaker, as everyone has mentioned, this bill is important because it is going to help in regulating the manufacturing sector, the pharmaceutical manufacturing sector. Madam Speaker, pharmaceutical sector is one sector that I believe is capable of helping this country to grow its economy, because the sector has not been really utilized properly. In Kenya, we have about 30 companies that are manufacturing drugs. If you compare this number with our neighbors, Tanzania has about 11, Uganda has about 20. That means, Madam Speaker, that if we really harness this sector, we could be the country that is exporting drugs to the region. Unfortunately, this is not the case, Madam Speaker, because, as you are aware, Madam Speaker, we largely rely on imported drugs, imported medicine. And this is the reason why we are saying that if you visit chemists, local chemists, you will find that they are only stocking imported drugs. And some of these imported drugs are drugs of low quality, And I hope that with the licensing that has been, mandate that has been given to this authority, they are going to do a better job in ensuring that the drugs that come to this country are those ones of high quality. But Madam Speaker, coming back to the point that I raised about maximizing on this sector to help us grow our economy, Madam Speaker, I believe that we have done very little as Parliament to help this sector to grow. For example, Madam Speaker, in the recent Finance Act, we did very little because we put so many taxes on this sector. So these taxes that we put on this sector, as a House, I think we have done injustice to this sector, a sector which actually could create job opportunities for our youths, a sector which could actually help us in generating foreign exchange. Right now we have issues with foreign exchange because we lack inflows, foreign inflows. So Madam Speaker, as we pass this bill, we must remember that high taxation, a high tax regime is bad for any sector. It is bad for the pharmaceutical sector. It is bad for any sector. And I want to call upon government that it is not enough to just come here and bring us bills to pass. We will pass bills, but these bills will have no effect in jump-starting our economy if we do not link some of these legislations with the other aspects of governance, such as taxation. Because, Madam Speaker, right now, you realize that the cost of electricity has gone so high, and there's no manufacturing sector that can prosper if we cannot contain the cost of power. Madam Speaker, if we continue to tax employers, we continue to tax these companies. Today we are taxing, we are increasing NHIF. Tomorrow we are increasing NSSF. We are, I don't know, housing levy, this nonsense tax. Madam Speaker, this nonsense tax is going to kill these sectors. And it will be a waste of time for us to sit here and make laws and bring up good laws which will not be implemented. The other issue, Madam Speaker, is things to do with corruption. Madam Speaker, I also believe that this country does not lack laws. We have enough laws. But how come these laws do not help us? It's because we allow corruption to thrive. Corruption thrives in this sector. The health sector I think, is the most corrupt after the police. So if we are going to ensure that these laws work for us and they serve us, these new laws we are passing, then we must be vigilant and ensure that we do not allow corruption to thrive. And because this government has allowed corruption in all its rank, every day this government is displaying corruption. You see a whole deputy president carrying sacks of money going to church, to give donations everywhere. So you are displaying corruption and you want this country to prosper. The country cannot prosper. And therefore, Madam Speaker, what I'm saying is that we must tie some of these things so that they work together for the good of our country. Madam Speaker.
What is out of order, Honorable Roko, member from Bere.
Madam Speaker, it's extremely in bad taste. My brother and my friend, Honorable Tandi, is painting the Deputy President of the Republic, a man whom we respect, a truthful man, as a corrupt person, without any evidence, without laying any papers or any document. And according to the rules of this House, Madam Speaker, you cannot cast aspersion or you cannot discuss the integrity of any senior member of this country who cannot be able to defend themselves here without laying down proper documentation which are signed by an affidavit or from a commission of oath so that you can prove your allegation. Is he in order, Madam Speaker? Can he withdraw the statements he made?
Madam Speaker, it's not fair for my colleague to waste my time raising a useless standing order, a useless point.
Honorable Atandi, the language you're using now is clearly unparliamentary. And basing on standing order number 91, I listened to you very well. You mentioned the name of the Deputy President. You also, in bad light, and you also talked about carrying money in bags. And I want to invoke standing order number 91, responsibility for statement of fact. And I would like to ask you to substantiate your statement or withdraw and apologize.
Madam Speaker, I am very clear about my statements and the standing orders that apply. Madam Speaker, I'm talking about corruption, and I'm saying, Madam Speaker, that the senior government officers are displaying corruption.
I have a problem with the picking of the mic, so it takes time to pick after I press. Honorable Attorney,
Madam Speaker,
I have invoked standing order number 91, responsibility for statement of fact. And I have also clearly mentioned the word that you have used, and I have asked you to present evidence because you have mentioned the office, the bearer of a certain office. So are you willing to withdraw and apologize so that you may conclude your debate?
Madam Speaker, I don't find anything that I should withdraw, because what I've said is very clear. I've said that government officers are displaying corruption.
No. You said the deputy president. So
yes, but
I would like to give you an opportunity to withdraw and apologize, or you can present facts on this.
I want to add, Madam Speaker, that deputy president is displaying corruption in his activities by carrying millions of money in cash, taking to Arambes. And you know very well, Madam Speaker, that the law that we pass in this house, you cannot withdraw more than 1 million shillings from your account. Where does he get 5 million shillings to take to Arambes? I will not withdraw, Madam Speaker.
I have a problem with the mic. You notice that I'm really straining. Kindly, whoever is concerned with that, assist. Responsibility for statement of fact. That is standing order number 91. A member shall be responsible for the accuracy of facts which the member alleges to be true and may be required to substantiate any such facts instantly. I would like you to substantiate that fact, alleged fact you're talking about, instantly, or you withdraw and apologize, or I'll consider you out of order.
Madam Speaker, I will bring you evidence of Deputy President presenting millions of shillings in Arambes. I will bring you that evidence.
Andy,
because there's overwhelming evidence.
Instantly.
Which I don't have here with me.
It is instantly, Honorable Attorney. You are out of order. You cannot have another point of order on top of another point of order, Honorable Ruku. I would like to give you an opportunity to withdraw and apologize. The statement you have made is weighty, and it affects the person of the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, and it is a serious statement, Honorable Attorney.
Madam Speaker,
so withdraw and apologize,
Speaker,
or I rule you out of order.
Madam Speaker, I will disappoint you. I will not withdraw, because I'm speaking about facts which I believe in, that the Deputy President is displaying corruption by carrying huge sums of money to Arambes.
The other day when I was in this position of the Speaker, I cautioned you, and I think you have a way of finishing your statements in a disorderly way. I cautioned you. Today I'm going to invoke Standing Order 107, disorderly conduct, F, 107(1)F, where member commits an act of disorderly conduct if the member deliberately gives false information to the House, and G, makes allegations without, in the Speaker's opinion, adequate substantiation. And I consider you to have given false information because you do not have the ability to substantiate. I've given you 2 opportunities to do so, and you have made allegations without, in my opinion, adequate substantiation. So I order you to get out of the House. Record that you'll be out of the House for the rest of the day. Honorable Atandi. So may you may now withdraw from the chamber. Withdraw out of the chamber. Order, Honorable Ruku. Order, Honorable Ruku. Honorable Atandi, withdraw out of the chamber. Order, Catherine Omanyo. You are not disorderly, Honorable Catherine Omanyo, so stay in your position. I am addressing the Honorable Atandi, and I have asked you to withdraw from the chamber. Thank you. Honorable members, now we go to the Honorable Rahim Dawood, member for North Imenti.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to support this bill, Kenya Drugs Authority bill, and I want to congratulate the chairman, Dr. Pokose, together with his committee on the excellent bill.
Honorable Dawood, just a minute. Honorable members, I would like to request you that I take this opportunity to recognize these students from Faith Ventures Christian Academy, Reisambu constituency, Nairobi County, and Kadhikwani Primary School, Kilome constituency in Makueni County. On my behalf and that of the House, you are welcome to continue observing proceedings in the National Assembly. You may proceed, Honorable Dawood. Honorable members, it is very important for us to recognize these young ones, and we had just lost one of the groups because we did not do it. So you may proceed now, Honorable Dawood.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, like I said, I congratulate the committee led by Dr. Pokose. This bill is very important, and it's come at the right time. Madam Speaker, there are many, many things out there, 2 groups which are fighting each other so that one is not recognized and one is recognized. Madam Speaker, this bill is not just about the pharmacists and the farm techs. Madam Speaker, this bill goes very far in the establishment of the authority where the national quality control will be the main benchmark where the drugs which are procured in this country are looked at in a sense that we do not get drugs which are expired or which have adverse effects. Madam Speaker, we have been privy to a lot of things that drugs which are banned in the European Union, they somehow find their way into Kenya because of weak structures. But the way this bill has been structured, Madam Speaker, we will have a proper functioning authority which will take care that these drugs which are not good for our people cannot come to the shores of this country. Madam Speaker, we've got an issue with a lot of cosmetics which are sold in the streets of Nairobi and other places, which are very harmful to our people, but they are being sold and they are being imported because the standards have been lowered. But with this bill, I believe we will have those cosmetics being banned completely because, Madam Speaker, like the previous speakers have said, there are some drugs which you can buy just specially. They are not put on the shelves. They're put on the side, on the back in the stores, and they're not sold to each and every person. If I were to go, I would not be sold those drugs, but they know who to sell them to. So, Madam Speaker, we need to control those things, Madam Speaker, as well as this bill goes far in the manufacture of pharmaceuticals in this country. It makes it easier for local manufacturing. And Madam Speaker, I would want to confess that my two daughters are pharmaceutical. One is a pharmaceutical scientist, a master's, and one is a pharmacist, doctor in pharmacy. And that does not mean that I do not advocate for pharmacy, the farm techs. Farm techs, they have got their own place. Pharmacies have got their own place. I believe when we come to the committee stage, I have spoken to the chair regarding, Madam Speaker, you'll protect me from Mheshimiwa, he's just gone. Madam Speaker, when we come to the committee stage, I believe we will give justice to this bill, because there is an issue. Farm techs are out there, and we need pharmacies in all the small towns and in the villages, because without having pharmacies, then the universal health care of the government of Kenya Kwanza will not be achieved, Madam Speaker, and they are supposed to be there. But let them handle what is supposed to be handled, and pharmacists will be handling the wholesale and retail. So, Madam Speaker, when we are saying it is nothing to do with just pharmacists and farm techs, but it's to do with what we are going to be getting in future. Madam Speaker, with those few remarks, I support. And Madam Speaker, I would, I don't know, it's not an advice or that, but I would want in future any member who imputes improper motive, they should not be allowed to go very far. The mic should be shut off before even they can go too far, because there is no justification in character assassination. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I support.
The Honorable Otiende Amolo, member for Rieda, Senior Counsel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, from the onset, I'd like to congratulate the committee for the bill, and I want to say I'm in support of the bill, because among others, it rationalizes this area. It brings issues that fall under the Pharmacy and Poisons Act and under the Food, Drugs, and the Chemical Substances Act to rationality. And I agree that it's actually in keeping with the international standards. And therefore, Madam Speaker, for the whole bill as it is, I only have one small area that I do not agree with, that I think the committee should look at, and that is what is in section 8(2)J. In that section, which talks about the composition of the board, the chair of the board is clearly indicated as a person appointed by the president who is a registered pharmacist of good standing with a degree in pharmacy. When it comes to the representative of the governors, they say it would be a person with special knowledge of drugs and health technologies, whatever that means. It is to be noted, Madam Speaker, that there is definition. In the definition section, a pharmaceutical technologies is defined, and also a pharmacist is defined. But there is no definition of this animal called a person with special knowledge of drugs and health technologies. Whenever you are not clear, it always gives rooms for appointment of all sorts of persons, and they say, we have knowledge. That is one area that I would like to urge the chair and the committee to consider. And Dr. Pukose is not listening, but someone will tell him what I've just said. Madam Speaker, aside from that, I do not have a problem with the bill as it is, and as I've said, I support it. But I do have a problem with some sections of the report of the committee, and I've gone through it. And the conceptual, two aspects. The first aspect is what the Deputy Speaker spoke to, and that is what is in clause 2D of the committee report. There was a proposal in the report, and I hope they will drop it to remove the veterinary medicine from the ambit of the bill. As submitted, I think, by Dr. Nyikal, it is my view that whether it is human medicine or veterinary medicine, it is medicine. And the molecular composition may vary, but not substantially. And therefore, it's my view, Madam Speaker, that regulation of veterinary medicine, just like human medicine, must still be centralized and it must be brought back to this authority. And I'd really like to urge the committee to consider and drop that particular amendment. The second general area is an area that I think Dr. Daoud just spoke to. Dr. Nyikal also mentioned it. There are very many areas in which the committee is suggesting adding the word pharmaceutical technologist, where the word pharmacist appears. And this includes, for example, when it comes to clause 2M in the report, it also includes clause 39 to 41 when it comes to regulation of wholesale dealers. It also includes, especially in clause 41, where you are talking of the those adding pharmaceutical technologists to those to deal with scheduled substances. And it's a variety of places which I do not have to enumerate all of them, some of which I've pointed out to Dr. Pukose. Madam Speaker, I have a conceptual problem with that approach, that where you have the word pharmacist, you just simply want to add the word pharmaceutical technologist. While I agree with what Honorable Daoud said, and even Dr. Nyikal, that we need to find a niche for each, I do not agree that you can lump these two people together. I do not agree, Madam Speaker, that in all these professions, and it's not just in the pharmacy, I think pathologists have that problem. The pathologists and the lab technicians. The doctors have this issue between the doctors and the clinicians. The architects have an issue between the architects and the draftsmen. The engineers have an issue between engineers and inspectors. Even the advocates have this issue between paralegals, between advocates and paralegals or clerks. It cannot be that one can go for learning at a certain level of a certain rank for so many years, and that it can just be amended by the stroke of the pen that it is stroke so and so. If one graduates, it is okay, and one can always rise higher. But until you get there, there must be roles that are preserved for you and roles that are preserved for someone else of higher learning who also takes higher responsibility for their action. And therefore, Madam Speaker, I want to persuade the committee to reconsider that approach of simply saying pharmacist stroke pharmaceutical technologies and adopt a more practical approach of looking at what is it that pharmaceutical technologies can do, and what is it that we will reserve for pharmacists. You know, it can be argued, and it's been argued, that look, as a country we have shortage of specialists, including pharmacists. We have issues of costs. We have issues of people who are experienced, even if they are technologists, sometimes even more than the pharmacist. But there are reasons for this categorization, and the solution cannot be to lower the standards or to lower the threshold. The solution must be to address those specifics and agree on what we want to hold at a higher pedestal and what we want to hold at a lower pedestal. And then for each pedestal, to hold those respective categories to the highest professional standard and punish them whenever there's transgression. I do not agree, therefore, Madam Speaker, that we can simply say that anything that a pharmacist can do, a pharmaceutical technologist can do. And there are many in this bill. Lastly, Madam Speaker, there is actually a technical point that the committee should actually consider. I'll urge Dr. Pukose to look at the history of this bill, and if he looks at the history of this bill, you will see that on 24th October 2018, there was a discussion of similar provisions. At that time, a similar thing had been done, and the Attorney General gave an advisory that it was improper to equate those two levels. When the bill went to the President refused to assent and brought it back with those observations. And I'm sure Dr. Pukose's clerks will be able to get all that. Do we want to walk that path again, where there was an advisory that was issued, it was ignored, it resulted in refusal to assent? And technically, what would that mean? When it has come back, and it's essentially a continuation of the bill, would it then attract a higher threshold as usual of the 2/3 or not? So that we do not walk that line, and so that we do not detain a bill that is otherwise quite good, I would urge the committee to look at those distinctions without making anyone think that they've won or they've lost, but we give due learning, due experience, and responsibility where it belongs. With that, Madam Speaker, I support.
Thank you. The Honorable Silvanus Osoro, member for South Mugirango and Whip, Majority Whip.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also want to echo the words of those who've spoken ahead of me and support this particular bill from the onset. And just like my colleague and learned senior Honorable Tienda has spoken, I agree entirely with everything that is here, except for a few. Number one, Honorable Speaker, it's important for us to start defining our bills differently, or the bodies that we choose to manage particular sections of, to manage issues of our country differently. This bill is the Kenya Drugs Authority bill. If there is a way, sometimes we need to think through beyond appearing like we want to authoritize everything. That if it can be a service, you know, like the Kenya Drugs Service, something, so that it appears like it's not just an authority, but it's a service that also offers other things, not just regulations that, you know, that be. But be that as it may, Honorable Speaker, drugs is a general term. Human beings use drugs, but also animals use drugs. You know, we've got animals, and the science is the same. The scientists go through the same training. It's only that one is meant for a human being, and another one is meant for an animal. So the separation or the exclusion of the veterinary drugs from this particular bill is not right. My view, even as we go to the next step, that the committee should consider, just like Honorable Tienda said, including the veterinary drugs. These things of and saying that, you know, it's regulated differently. As the bill is currently, I hear Honorable Millie say that it's there. It's not there in this particular bill, that it's regulated differently. It should be included when you go to the next reading. Honorable Speaker, you see, there is a tendency of the wannabes in a particular career, and I say this with tremendous respect. The wannabe in a career pushing to be placed at par with the people, with the people that they are ambitiously focusing to achieve, you know, their goal. Like, you get a clerk in my law firm wants to be called wakili or an advocate, and he's a clerk. And that is the justification this bill is also providing. That a pharmaceutical technologist wants to be at par with a pharmacist. You know, that you define them with the same line, within the same line, that a pharmacist and a technologist. I mean, they are also distinct. Even their mode of training is different. One is just basic, and the other one goes extreme in the training. So this justification of trying to put the people, the wannabes of a particular career at par with the people who've gone steps higher in terms of trading should be reviewed. And I think even as the committee looks at that, they should focus. They should find a way to push and make sure that such roles are distinct, clearly distinct. But even as we look at this, Honorable Speaker, it's important for this particular bill also, and even the people who manage these matters drugs, to be keen on also what is happening. We currently have so many quacks in different professionals. So many quacks. What is now in public domain is a quacks in the Law Society of Kenya, or lawyers, I would say there. People pretend to be advocates and they've never gone to any law school. But it's worse when those quacks also practice the over-the-counter sale of the medicines. You can imagine what will happen if somebody prescribes a wrong medicine on a wrong, prescribes a wrong medicine on you, on your body, and there is no reverse, there is no spare on your body. That even as we look at this, we need to find a way to have most of these quacks in professions. People have sacrificed, gone to school, studied very hard, opened, decided to have their businesses in pharmacy, and somebody comes next, collects allowances for another person who's gone to school, and then decides to wear a dust coat, and calls himself doc or a pharmacist, and sells drugs and prescribes drugs. And those are the people you hear when you go to their pharmacies. They just tell you, you say, I have a stomachache, and they tell you, you look like you have H. pylori. And they give you some kits without proper medical checkups. So even as we look at this whole thing, it's important for us to be keen on that. And those quacks are in the villages. I have seen so many in my constituency. Small chemists selling Panadol, selling everything, and others even doing abortions. Quite unfortunate. And sometimes such are discovered when things have gone south. So we also need to find a way to regulate and protect societies, professional bodies, professional societies. Like now the pharmacies and such. So that quality professions are protected, human life is also protected, and the dignity of a profession is guarded. I mean, it kills morale for one to go to school for nothing, because it's something that can be done by other people. And that is what now is happening in the hospitals. And Honorable Speaker, even in such, even as we talk about the drugs, others go to an extent of selling drugs that are expired, drugs that have been banned from some countries. And nowadays they know the science of human beings. They know that what people want. People want quick service, over the counter. And it becomes very easy to get a quack selling you, or even that pharmacy, a professional or qualified pharmacist selling you over the counter without prescription. If there is a way such can be stopped, generic medicines, they tell you, you've come for Panadol, this one is original, and that's how they say, this is generic. So why are you selling generic? Why can't you sell me original? How do we relate? If it does the same job, then why can't we have the original, even if the pricing is different? What is this? Is it business, trading business for human body? Those are the things that we also need to discuss, even as we go through this whole process. But generally, Honorable Speaker, the bill is good only for such reviews that we meet the WHO standards. We include, the veterinary medicine to be part of this whole thing. We separate the pharmacists, the real pharmacists, from the technicians, because I believe, they say when I was growing up, I used to see people in dust coat and I thought all of them were doctors. I didn't know that some of them were butchery attendants, and others were selling sausages, and others were true doctors and pharmacists. So once we are able to do that, the technologists aside, the pharmacist aside, then the bill, as it is right. And that is why I want to congratulate Honorable Chair and your committee. This is a good job. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Donya Doris, member for Kisii County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would love to support this because life, we must not at any time think of joking with our lives. Medicine is very key. As my member of parliament was speaking, Honorable Soro, because I'm the woman rep for Kisii, so he's my MP from South Mugirango. I just remembered while you walk along Kisii Teaching and Referral Hospital in Kisii County, several chemists and patients will tell you that we have many chemists which offer all the medicines that you cannot find in our facility. Then you keep on wondering, Madam Speaker, we have the best doctors in hospitals, they treat, but they don't have the best medicine. That is just a fallacy. It does not add up. It's like you go to class, you find that the teacher is teaching without the books. This bill will help doctors, and if they are told you are treating a patient, yes, you are telling this patient, oh, sorry, we don't have this medicine in this facility, but you can find it as you walk out. And when you are walking, Madam Speaker, those are the facilities which offer that medicine. I ask myself each day, how come you only find the paracetamol? That is very cheap. It is available. But these are the medicines which give you the cure now. You are told that you cannot find them here. And the normal percentage of high number of quacks operating these kind of businesses, sometimes we have people, they lose their lives. And others will tell you, if you want good treatment, you go to India. Why should we leave our dear country, Madam Speaker, if the regulations have not been made right, that we only have to get better treatment in other countries? I support this, Madam Speaker. My brother Kibagendi is really complaining. I don't know, Madam, if you can give her the 2 minutes. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable member for Kisii, you are out of order. The Honorable Karido, member for Igembe Central.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May I also take this opportunity to congratulate Dr. Pokose and his committee for coming up with this bill, the Kenyan Drug Authority Bill. Madam Speaker, we are in this era whereby almost everybody is suffering from this illness and the other. In most of the families, you find that at least almost 80% of the families in Kenya, somebody is taking this drug, maybe joint pain, here and there. Madam Speaker, we need to have standards for our products. Because as much as we think of ourselves, we should think of the world at large. And we are not in a world of our own. Madam Speaker, we need to have pharmaceutical companies, especially those who are in production, considering the standards of the products that they make. And I have seen the bill, I have read it, and it's really covering large areas to make sure that all the products that are made by our pharmacists are the right products and the best ones. Madam Speaker, in Kenya we have a challenge, especially on counter treatment. We have made the drugs, and many of us have become drug abusers. I have seen and have witnessed people taking some cough syrups like Actifend. They have been banned in some countries, but here people have been abusing them, overdosing, and they end up being drunkards through those drugs. Madam Speaker, it's the high time that all the drugs that are sold at the pharmacies, they are sold the drugs that have been prescribed by the medics who have the quality and who are qualified to do that job. Madam Speaker, we would discourage a situation whereby you wake up, go to the pharmacy, and just demand for a drug, and the dealer sells to you the drug that they wish because they are out to make money. We have seen that in most cases, we've seen surrounding pharmacists and pharmacy shops without even licenses. And I have seen the bill is taking care of all that, and we believe that after the bill is through and becomes a law, it will really be working, and not to just be seen as a law. Madam Speaker, the other issue is that of the generic drugs. My brother has talked much about them, but it's also a challenge because they are not labeled as generic. But you are told these are generic drugs, they are not originals, these are cheaper. I think the subscription from the doctor should be saying what should be given. There's this also the issue of the interchangeability, whereby you go with a prescription for the drugs that you are supposed to take. Then you find a pharmacist does not have those drugs in the shop. He intends to give you an alternative for the drugs that have been prescribed by your doctor. I believe because it's also taking care of that, it will be affected. So in generally, the bill is a very good bill, and I will support it, and I believe it will serve Kenyans and even international community. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Carito. The Honorable George N. Gashagwa, member for Daragwa. Is Honorable Gashagwa in the House? Then we will be followed by the Honorable John Waluke, member for Sirisia.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. From onset, Madam Speaker, I want to support this bill. The Kenya Trucks Authority Bill, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank the chair, Dr. Bukose, and his committee for bringing in this important bill, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it is today that I have heard from Dr. Nyakal that medicine for treating human beings and animals are the same. I never knew that, Madam Speaker. And I'm so shocked because I had never heard anything like that. Madam Speaker, the pharmacists of this country, Madam Speaker, some of them are not trained. I've witnessed it even in where I come from, Madam Speaker. Somebody is running a pharmacy for the last 25 years, and he is not a nurse or neither a doctor, but he sells medicine, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I want to request this committee under Dr. Bukose, because Dr. Bukose himself is a doctor, is a medical doctor, to take action, Madam Speaker, with these quack doctors and nurses, Madam Speaker, who sell medicine and they are not qualified for doing such a business, Madam Speaker. Because, Madam Speaker, we have lost lives of very many people who are innocent and they are sick, going to look for medicine, Madam Speaker, and these people end up giving them wrong medicine, Madam Speaker. So it is good that the committee has observed and come out with a bill that we are going to support to make sure that we protect lives of our people, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want the manufacturers of this country also to wake up. Madam Speaker, you saw during COVID time, I thought that the manufacturers of this country and doctors were going to come out also, like South Africa, Madam Speaker, to manufacture medicine. Like South Africa manufactured medicine for COVID, Madam Speaker. And our doctors here and also the manufacturers, medical manufacturers or medicine manufacturers, Madam Speaker, we've never seen them coming out with that different idea that can save this country from importing medicine or from outside the country, Madam Speaker. So we want also to compete like any other country in the world, Madam Speaker, to make sure that Kenya is on board on every aspect like this one of medicine, Madam Speaker. I want to support this bill. It's a very important bill, Madam Speaker, and colleagues should pass this bill, Madam Speaker, because it is important to us as a nation and to the people of Kenya. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support.
Boaluke, the Honorable Kibangendi, member for Kitutu Chache South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support as a member of this committee. Indeed, a regularized industry will guard especially the masses from being exploited by unscrupulous dealers. We have realized in the past that we have had every hoi polloi has been involved in the sale, manufacture, and distribution of drugs, both for humans and even for veterinary purposes. And if we pass this particular bill, we'll have a properly regularized sector that will ensure only those that are allowed to run chemists and even those manufacturing are the only ones that will be involved in this particular trade. The other thing is that we also need to ensure that as we push Kenyans to go for further studies, there needs to be a clear demarcation on where one class of training can get to and where the other can take up from. And for that reason, I support this bill and I ask members to pass. Thank you.
The Honorable Ruku, member for Mbere North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. From onset, I want to support this bill, and I want to congratulate Dr. Pokose and his committee in a special way. Madam Speaker, I was in a process of doing a number of RAP tests on the drugs within our market. Myself and my team, I work with a very formidable team, Madam Speaker, because already in Kenyan market there is huge section of drugs which are completely not good for human consumption. And these drugs are found their way into the pharmacies which we have in different parts of this country. And this is happening, Madam Speaker, when we have Poison and Drug Board, which is supposed to check on the quality of the drugs we have in our shelves. But in one way or the other, many cheap drugs And of course, we need to have cheap drugs in the country, but which are of good quality, which are can able to treat different ailment which occurs within the Republic of Kenya, so that we can have a healthy society. The control of how the drugs are dispensed from our chemists is an extremely important function, and this bill is coming to regulate how this is going to happen. And therefore, Madam Speaker, the effort which can be put in place by the committee is very commendable. But as this is happening, before this bill is enacted, before it comes into law, is it possible, Madam Speaker, to move with speed and check whether the drugs which we have in our shelves, because some of them have already been ruled that they are not fit for human consumption. They are not going to treat some of the, especially children, pediatric drugs. Some, they seem to be addictive. Is it, before we enact this, before we ensure this is done, I think the authorities concerned within this space, they should also be able to move with speed and check what is being sold in our pharmacies, whether it meets the required standards. And I was in the process of working on a report which we can table in this house as far as this is concerned. And because this has come on the floor of the House, I didn't know whether there's an effort by the Chairman Pukose to work on this. Please, let's see what is being sold in our pharmacies is of good quality, so that we may not be adding more problems when we are claiming that we are treating people from different diseases or different ailments. With those remarks, Madam Speaker, I support and congratulate Dr. Pukose with his team. Thank you.
The Honorable Irene Mayaka, nominated member.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, I also stand to support this bill, but with possible amendments. And Honorable Speaker, the areas that I actually want to focus on, and it's been mentioned here before, is that as a country, we have our own aim, and we strive to achieve the WHO maturity level 3 in terms of health. And when we allow clause 39 of this particular bill, subsection 4, to proceed, then in intent, we are trying to say that we don't really take into account what we are striving to achieve. Honorable Speaker, allowing the wholesale and distribution of drugs to anyone, especially the technical people who do not have the required qualification, is not only going to harm our pharmaceutical environment, but it's also going to affect the safety of the public. Honorable Speaker, for example, you can imagine if we have a drug like the morphine being easily accessible to people who do not really know how to prescribe it, how this is going to affect the overall population of our country. Honorable Speaker, we've had so many outcries from the pharmaceutical professionals, from doctors, in terms of how this is ideally going to affect us. And I think it's upon us as a House of Legislation to also take into consideration how this is going to affect the people out there. Honorable Speaker, it has come to our attention also that we've become a society where there's a lot of alliances to shortcomings and shortcuts.
Honorable Marianne, do you have an intervention? Because you've been lifting your hand. What is out of order, Honorable Marianne?
No, Madam Speaker, because this motion is, this bill looks very popular. I think after she finishes, I think we can ask the mover to reply. Under Standing Order number 95.
Is it the mood of the House that I call upon the mover to reply? Okay, I'll then put that to test. Honorable members, I would like to ask whether it is the mood of the House that I call upon the mover to reply. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say nay. The nays have it, so we proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I think this is a very important motion to this country, and we should ventilate and debate as much as possible. Honorable Speaker, as I was saying, we've had instances, and this has been mentioned before, of where quacks are actually operating and practicing in professions that ideally one should go to school properly and have the proper qualification before you can practice. Just the other day, we have had a quack in the surgeon and medical environment. And Honorable Speaker, when we begin to allow some of these amendments to come through, we set a very dangerous precedent for this country. Because then we will also have situations where other people who just have diplomas will start coming in and saying that they want to go to court and start representing clients. So therefore, Honorable Speaker, I do not want us to encourage this. And I want to also just encourage the chair and the Committee of Health to be to take on positively the amendments that we seek to bring to the House in terms of what we feel should be regulated in this particular bill. Honorable Speaker, I also want to speak about Clause 41, subsection 1B, which suggests removing the schedule of medicines, and also that we should be able to revert back to global acceptable scheduling as indicated in the standards in CAP 244. And the reason why I say this, Honorable Speaker, again, is because if you go to some of these countries, out there like South Africa, Dubai, the UK, and you go to over the counter to request for medication, you will actually not be given medication, and they're very strict about that, unless you have proper prescription. And as a country, we should strive to go towards that direction, because by doing so, then we are able to not only safeguard the public, but we are also to ensure that the highest measurements of standards of medicine and prescription of the same is attained in our country. Honorable Speaker, and because there's so much interest, I will stop there so that I allow others to debate. But I just want to, as I say, to urge the committee to be very positive in their reception towards the amendments that we will seek to be bringing to the floor of the House. I submit.
Thank you. The Honorable Zamzam Chimba, member for Mombasa County.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa vile muda unasi nitaenda mbio nikisema kwanza napongeza kamati ya afya kuweza kuleta mswada huu bungeni. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, madawa yamekuwa yakitumiwa kwa njia mbaya. Tumeona kuwa kuna watu wengi wamefungua chemist kila mahali wanauza. Mheshimiwa Spika, ikiwa mswada huu utaweza kupita na kurekebishwa sehemu ambazo zinaweza zikaleta sintofahamu kwa watu ambao wako katika hii industry, Mheshimiwa Spika, itakuwa ni mswada mzuri sana. Ifahamike kuwa Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna hata madawa ambayo watoto wengi wamekuwa wakiingia wanatumia, bora akiangalia ile prescription inasoma kitu gani, unapata anaenda ananunua, na yule mtu wa pharmacy kwa vile hamuulizi prescription kutoka kwa daktari, yeye anaangalia tu anampatia, yeye bora hafanye biashara. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ikiwa kutakuwa na sheria kama hii inayoletwa ya kuzingatia kuwa lazima hii industry iangaliwe vizuri, lazima wale wanaouza wao ni watu ambao wamebobea katika sekta hii, ili tusiweze kuleta madhara kwa wananchi. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, watoto hata wa skuli wameweza kutumia madawa haya wakiyapata kiolela, kuavya mimba. Wengine wametumia ikiwa mtu pengine ana stress, anajua dawa fulani nikienda tu katika chemist fulani nitapata, nitakunywa, nitalala, lakini haisaidii. Mheshimiwa Spika, imekuwa ikiharibia maisha yao. Kwa hiyo mimi nataka nichukue fursa hii, kwa vile kuna wenzangu pia wataka kuzungumza, niseme napongeza mswada huu, lakini kama alivyosema dadangu Iron Mayaka, tusiwezi kuweka mwanya ambao utakuja kuwa watu wapelekana kotini wakirudi. Tuweke sheria ambayo itakuwa inakubalika, sheria ambayo itazingatia sheria ambayo tunayo katika taifa hili, na muhimu katika yote pia, Mheshimiwa Spika, sisi tuna sehemu ambapo kwamba utapata watu dawa zikishakuwa zime-expire zenda kutupwa. Kule zinakotupwa waziwazi pia utapata kuna watu wanaenda wanaokota wanatumia. Ama katika hospitali zetu, nafikiri jana tumekuwa na hawa ndugu zetu wa KEMSA ambao tulikuwa tuwauliza maswali, ikabainika kuwa hata kuna dawa ambazo zilienda Mombasa County ambazo zilikuwa pengine expiry bado miezi 2-3. Mheshimiwa Spika, hii weza kuona yule mtu wa pharmacy ndani ya hospitali aweza akatoa kumbe muda ambao wa kutumika umeisha, akaweza kupatia mgonjwa, ikaleta madhara, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hiyo tuangalie sheria ambayo itathibiti kuwa madawa yoyote yasiingie Kenya kama muda wao wa kuisha uko karibu, yasiweze kupitishwa katika mipaka yetu, Mheshimiwa Spika. Tumekuwa kina mama wa kuenda tunabisha chemist, mtoto anakohoa, unachukua dawa yoyote. Tumepata kuna madawa mengi yametengezwa katika mataifa ya nje. Kwa mfano kulikuwa na tetesi, kuna dawa zilitoka Pakistan, zingine India, tukaona picha wanazitengeza nyumbani. Hizi madawa zimepata njia ya kuweza kuingia katika taifa letu na zimeweza kuleta madhara. Kwa hiyo naweza kuunga mjadala huu, kusupport hii kamati na kuwapongeza na kusema lazima tuweke sheria ambayo inaweza kudhibiti hii industry ya madawa. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
The Honorable Jane Kagiri, member for Laikipia County.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute to this very important bill. First is to thank the Committee of Health for coming up with this bill, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I first thank the committee for protecting the people we represent, people who cannot differentiate who is a doctor and who is not a doctor. For that purpose, Honorable Speaker, I appreciate that this bill is going to allow us to differentiate between a pharmacist, a pharmaceutical technologist, or even somebody who is not actually a doctor. Because in this country, Madam Speaker, health is a very expensive venture. And many a times we find our people going for treatment and maybe getting the wrong treatment for that matter. So in this case, this bill will be helping our people enjoy quality, safe, and efficient treatment. And again, Honorable Speaker, on the creation of the Kenya Drugs Authority, I appreciate that now we'll have an organization that will be investigating and monitoring the drugs that are used in this country. Madam Speaker, many a times we've heard of banned drugs which are still in our country being used. We will now have an authority that we can report to and actually raise issues if a situation like that happens. Madam Speaker, I also support the very high fines and very prohibitive or punitive for anybody who will be going against the laws that will be in this bill. Because, Honorable Speaker, many a times we've had our people treated for the wrong treatments or given the wrong medicine. And sadly enough, the families are left to take care of these people. Honorable Speaker, the culprits walk away unpunished and leave families suffering. Honorable Speaker, I support this bill because it's a bill that is going to improve our healthcare and the safety of our people and the security of our people. Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. I support the bill.
Thank you. The Honorable Millie Odhiambo, member for Suba North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to support this bill and thank the chairman of the Committee of Health for this well thought out bill. Madam Speaker, I just want to say that this bill provides for regulation so that we do not have drug abuse and also exploitation of the poverty of others, because there are people who may be addicted to drugs, and when we leave a framework where they can easily access drugs, then it means we'll be exploiting their poverty and their situations. Madam Speaker, I just want to also say that I also support this bill because it recognizes alternative medicine, though it needs to define what alternative medicine is. Actually, when I was looking at this bill, I went and tried and to make a definition or to define alternative medicine, only to discover that it's already defined under the Health Act. So there may be some cleaning up that this may need to be done. A few other things that we need to make reference to the relevant acts. Another issue is I'm happy that it recognizes herbal medicine. However, from the approach that this bill is giving herbal medicine, it is very scared. It's like we want to recognize it, but we still seem to think that herbal medicine is witchcraft from the way we are dealing with this. Herbal medicine is not witchcraft. In fact, 25% of all world medicines are derived from herbs. And now that we can actually recognize that there is the importance of herbal medicine, especially here in Kenya, then what we need to do is then to make sure that we give it the proper place. And I have proposed amendments that would ensure that we mainstream herbal medicine. I've said it before the House that we even have, in our own country, Kenya, we have several plants that are actually, like Mwarubaine and others, that are actually helping us, and they're herbal medicine. And for women, gynecological issues, most of our gynecological issues are actually dealt with by herbal medicine, much less by the modern medicine, or what we perceive as modern medicine. Madam Speaker, it also recognizes generic drugs, though I'm still trying to figure out how we deal with it in relation to intellectual property rights. But I think that one of the things that is of concern to me is that it gives the doctors who are prescribing the medicine the opportunity to then allow the dispensing chemist a chance to dispense the generic drugs, but does not give the patient a chance to refuse the generic drugs. Because sometimes you go to a healthcare facility and what the doctor prescribes for you is not what you're given, and then, even for you when the doctor is prescribing that alternative, the doctor needs to get your concurrence, because I may not want generic drugs. So those are things that are not there. Madam Speaker, I have several proposed amendments, and I will be bringing them at the right time. And Madam Speaker, I've actually talked to Honorable Osoro off the cuff, and I would want to bring it here. And I want to encourage the leadership of the majority that do not be worried or scared about amendments. We are all Kenyans, and if I propose an amendment, I'm only doing it to further the good or the benefits for Kenyans. So do not be scared. Like yesterday, I actually had some proposed amendments to the primary health care bill, but we are moving at such supersonic speed that we cannot bring proposed amendments, even though it was such a good bill in itself. But we wanted to look at adherence for people with HIV and AIDS. We wanted to look at ensuring that the issue of sexual and gender-based violence is treated as a health issue, because it provides a framework that reaches the household. And those are issues that are very significant. But the way we are moving, and it's unfortunate that we want to try and even shorten debate on this important bill, which is of significance to other members. And I'd want to encourage the leadership of this House that if you are not careful, very soon we'll be having what we call legislative dictatorship. We are used to executive dictatorship, but we are increasingly seeing what is appearing as legislative dictatorship. We know that you have the numbers, but have your way as we have our say. But where you use standing orders to keep stifling our voices, it's not a good thing, especially when you have a very good bill. Let members speak to it. The world is not ending tomorrow or the day after. Let us talk to them. Let us add value. I don't see why we are rushing like we are worried. Chair, there's also the issue of the quacks. And I want to thank Honorable Mayaka for raising that issue. That through this bill, we will bring an amendment to ensure that we don't have everybody dispensing drugs aimlessly. Madam Speaker, we know that there are many, many young girls who are dying because of abortions, especially unsafe abortions, and girls who are given drugs by people who are not qualified. And when we actually make it so easy for people to dispense who are not qualified, then we are actually creating a problem. Even, Chair, another thing that I saw that was of concern to me is the issue of giving one of the qualifications for the CEO is that the CEO should be an engineer. I don't understand why the CEO should be an engineer when you are dealing with the drugs. What engineering do they need? Because even though we are dealing also with the devices, you actually do notice that most of it is about drugs. One of my proposed amendments was either you separate it so that it is not about devices, it's only drugs. But if it is drugs and devices, then we actually need to bring an amendment even to the name of this bill so that it's Kenya Drugs and Devices Bill. Otherwise, this is a very good bill, and I want to yet again congratulate the chairman and the committee for this bill. I do support, and once again, urge the leadership to avoid legislative dictatorship. We are members, we also represent constituents, and I cannot bring an amendment that harms my own constituent. Thank you, I support.
Honorable Rashid Benziba, member for Kisauni.
Madam Speaker, ni kushukuru kwa kunipa nafasi pia mimi kupenyeza sauti yangu, ingawa nilikuja mapema nikitaka kuzungumzia mambo ya ajali barabarani, lakini sikupata nafasi. Lakini pia niseme kwamba niwapongeze kamati kwa kuja tena kanuni za kuweza kulinda afya za wananchi. Kwa sababu taifa lenye nguvu ni lile taifa ambalo wananchi wake wana afya, na ni vyema sana pia wale wanaouza madawa wawe ni watu ambao wana ujuzi huo, sio tu wanapeana, kwa sababu mara nyingi daktari anapoandika madawa wanarudi nasema hizi hakuna lakini hizi zinafanana. Kwa hivyo zingine zinakwenda zinadhuru wananchi. Na pia wananchi wanatosha waelezewe kwa makini kwamba dawa hii unatumia madhara yake ni haya. Dawa nyingi zina side effect. Mtu anaanza kutibiwa ugonjwa huu, mara anaambiwa figo tayari imeharibika. Kwa hivyo ni vyema sana watu wawe na taarifa kamili ya kuelezwa kwamba hizi dawa zina madhara kiasi gani. Kwa hivyo asante.
You have a balance. The Honorable Benziba, member for Kisauni, you have 8 minutes balance. Next time when this bill is scheduled for debate, and the bill has a balance of 1 hour and 24 minutes. Honorable members, and the time now being 1:00 p.m., this House stands adjourned until Wednesday, 18th of October 2023 at 2:30 p.m.